I wanted to welcome each and everyone for this webinar. I'm really excited to talk about this topic because of its very nature. Fear. I think each and every one of us can resonate with what fear is. Starting from our very childhood, we would have experienced fear in one form or the other, through some people or through some situation or whatever. But when I say the word fear, everyone can resonate. Everyone knows, how it feels. But the interesting part about fear is it's so different for everyone. And even for an individual person, fear for different circumstances, different situations vary. So, it's such an privilege to talk about fear and to have this discussion about what is this emotion that everyone go through in a very normal life, in a very day-to-day realities that we face. We encounter this fear and also the sister of fear, the negativity. So I wanted to take you through what actually fear is and what are its types and what are its consequences. And as usual, I want you all to know what is the science behind fear, or what actually happens in your brain when you are into fear, when you are in the mode of fear, and when negativity takes over, what actually happens in your brain. And that, and maybe after that, I wanted to take you through how we can come out of fear, how to face this fear. So this is in crux about what we're going to do in our webinar, followed by which we'll have question and answer sessions, for which you all know you can post your questions in Pigeonhole and the questions will be answered. So I just wanted to start with this quote. You cannot have a positive life and a negative mind. They two cannot work together. They cannot agree with each other. Most of us, or I would say all of us, want to have a positive life, positive relationship, positive thinking. But you know what? Somewhere we dwell in negativity. So these two cannot agree. When there is a disagreement between what we experience or our life reality and what we think, that's when everything goes wrong. That's when, we are into distress. I meet so many people in my in my profession, like they say life is like, life is a failure. I cannot do what I want to do. Life is not successful. So all these things comes basically because there is a disagreement or the distress created between your actual life product and what is happening within you, or the life reality and what is happening in your mind. Okay, so I just want to have this thought in your mind. We cannot have a positive life when there is a negativity in your mind. So now, what is fear? Fear, if I want to tell you in just as a crisp word, it's a false evidence appearing real. There is some evidence. I'm not saying there is nothing there. There is some evidence, but it is false. The deception here is, the trick here is, it appears very real. So fear is not basically reality based. Okay, we'll understand as we move on. You may have a lot of questions as I say this, but your questions will be answered as we go deep. So let's see its origin word. So fear, basically, it pops up from the very word from the Greek. There are so many, different types of fear, which I'll be dealing. But the fear that we are going to deal today, the very real, the grip of fear that we experience, that fear, the original word is delia, maybe. This word means cowardice, shy, or timidity. Okay, if we may say, no, I'm not coward, or I'm not ashamed or timid. But you know what, actually, In other words, how we can put this word fear is, fear is something which will make you afraid of the consequences. So fear is something where it makes you take the back seat or feel a threat or feel a danger of something where you have a real or an imagined consequence of an action for a particular thing. So fear, if you want to remember what fear is something which puts you on the back seat, or puts you, or socially withdraws you, or you let you to procrastinate things or avoid things from doing or attempting, basically because of imagined or real consequences related to the situation. So this is all about fear. So actually, if we go to the basic, the basic definition of cowardice, that's where it starts. Okay, maybe we have a general definition of what shy and cowardice is all about, but when relating it to the original word of fear, this is what it means: taking a back seat, or getting paralyzed, or becoming very much, ineffective. This is all about fear. So what this negativity has to do with fear? You know what? Fear cannot exist without negativity. If you say fear as a seed, then negativity is something, all that it requires to flourish, to grow. Maybe soil or sunlight or whatever that the seed requires to bloom out, that is what negativity is all about. Negativity is something like a stronghold for fear, strong wall around fear, so that your fear is always there. So if you have to tackle the fear, if you have to address the fear, all that you have to do is you have to break this wall first, the negativity. That is the main reason I wanted to give this together. These two are intertwined. Fear and negativity, they are together, they dwell together, they coexist, without which, without one, the other cannot exist. Okay, now we know what actual fear is all about, that we are talking. Next, let's talk about what are the types of fear. By now you would have had some questions. You may have some questions like, if I am afraid of crossing a road, is it wrong? No. Now let's see the types. You will understand. First is innate fear. Researchers say, scientists say that when a child is born with two types of fear. That is one, fear of height or falling. Not fear of heights, okay, but fear of falling. That's why when you lift a baby and you try dropping it, it startles. And the next fear, or the fear response the child has, is for loud noise. When there is a loud noise, the child has a fear response. Okay, the response will be there. So this is what is innate. When the child is born only with these fear. And next is the reverential fear. So you and me, let me go a little forward. So you and me were born only with these two fears. So you may have a question, where came all other fears? Yes, we'll be learning about it. Let's go on to the next type of fear, that is reverential fear. Reverential fear, it is, because we have all these, the word fear is used for all these things, we get confused. Okay, so that's why I just wanted to bring a clarification here. Reverential fear is something which is associated with love and respect. When you look at others, a person with awe, you try to fear them. That fear is giving respect, or reverential, in the sense love and respect together gives this response. Okay. And next is natural. Natural, for example, if there is a disaster, if there is a natural calamity is happening, there is a natural kind of fear response that comes, which is good. You run, you escape. That's good. That's a fear response. Why I'm giving all these things is, again, fear is used for all these things. Don't get confused, okay? Have a clear clarity. So natural is for natural causes. You cross the road and in reality, you see snake crossing. A kind of your body experiences some grip. That's natural response. Next comes our favorite, okay? Phobia and contextual fear. So phobia, again, phobia is something called irrational fear. So fear by in itself lacks some clarity, okay? But phobia is something which is very irrational, for the sense there are so many phobias that we can call it: fear for spider, or fear for frogs, fear for cockroach, where they'll be sensing an actual life threat, then there is not so. Okay, so it is completely irrational. When you rationalize it, this phobia can be handled. Okay, and the last one is what we are going to dwell in, that is contextual fear. So this is all about learned behavior. All the fear that you have, apart from whatever I mentioned, the innate one, the reverential one, the natural, the phobia, apart from all these things, all other fear, for example, fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of future, fear of being rejected, fear of losing your freedom. So all these things are learned. So all these things can be unlearned, basically. Okay, so these are the types. Now let's see the consequences. Why is that we have to know about fear? Is it so important? What are the areas does it affect? Okay. First and foremost, as students, I just want to bring this as a first point. When you are gripped with fear, your cognition is affected. Your cognition is affected in the sense, your clarity of thinking will be affected. Your attention span, the focus, the concentration will be affected. So these are the main area that is affected in cognition. Definitely the decision making will be affected when there is fear. That is very, very important for each and every one of us, just not for students, for everyone. For us to excel, we need the sharpness of clarity of thinking, sharp decision making, executing. All these areas will be affected if a person is gripped with fear or stays in fear. The next area that will be affected is your relationship, or otherwise I would call it as trust issues. People who have fear, if you're gripped with fear, basically it gives you an underneath message that there is some mistrust that is going on. You are not able to trust people, or you are not able to trust your own self, or you're not able to trust your design. The main area that is the consequence of fear is your trust. You will have trust issues. You cannot trust people. Even if someone comes and tells you, you are looking beautiful, you'll just laugh at them and you may tell to yourself, I know how I look. You cannot trust people. So trust issue is another consequence of fear. So you cannot trust people, you cannot trust your own abilities, and you cannot trust your design, your potential, the actual design, the potential of your brain, like what all the things that you can do. So the thriving part of you will be at stake when you are in fear. That's the second consequence. And the third is you cannot excel, or you will not come to the limelight. You will always try to take backseat. Always. You will be kind of a paralyzed person. You may be highly skilled, your abilities will be exponential, but to put it forward, to take a step for change or taking drastic steps in your life, steps to success, you cannot go. You cannot take. That is another important, very, very important, crucial consequence of fear. I can keep listing. There are a lot of consequences, but these are the three consequences I just wanted to highlight to you all. The first one is it affects your cognitive ability, especially your thinking, your decision making, your execution. Second, you will have trust issues. And third, you cannot be a leader, or you cannot come forward to take up steps. You will always take backseat. Sometimes you'll also probably say, I'm a kind of person, I always, I'm a back screen person, behind the screen I work. Yes, good, that's nothing wrong to be behind the screen, but if fear is holding you back, then that is a problem. If you're able to come to the stage for many other things, and for a particular area you are staying behind the screen, good, not a problem. But if fear, some negativity is stopping you and putting you on the backstage, there's a problem. It's a consequence of fear. Hope you understood. Let's move on. Next is the signs of fear. Very, very important. I really want you to pay keen attention to this, because understanding this is a very first step of overcoming fear. This basic understanding is what is the first step of coming out of fear. Okay, so signs of fear. As I mentioned you earlier, fear kills more dreams than failure ever will. That dangerous is fear. Okay, so let's see what the fear is all about. The science, what happens in your brain. So whenever there is a trigger, okay, whenever there is a situation that is happening, what happens is you take the there is a trigger. You meet a person whom you don't want to meet, or you're afraid of. So you meet a person, and the sensory information goes to your brain now. So it takes two parts. One is shortcut, and another is long, an actual route, the long route. In short route, what happens is the sensory impulses directly goes to amygdala. I hope by now you know what amygdala is, what prefrontal brain is, and hope you understand. If you are new to this session, I just wanted to tell you, in our brain there is an emotional center, that is amygdala. The thinking, the execution, the boss of our thinking, the boss which has a brain. I just want to repeat the phrase again. That is the front brain, okay, the frontal region, which takes decisions, which makes, which gives clarity of thinking, rationalizes. So that is there. And amygdala is emotion center. Okay, I just want you to be aware of these two words. We'll be using it. And also hippocampus. We have a new member coming in, and this person, this part of our brain, this hippocampus, he's a storage, is a memory part. He takes care of, memory issues, long-term memories. All the past is getting recorded, So all this, just relate hippocampus with memory. Okay, very simple. Don't complicate yourself. Don't worry about the vocabularies. I'll try to be very simple. So when a person meets with a situation, you take two routes. First one is shortcut. That is, you meet the situation, the sensory impulses goes directly to your amygdala, which is the emotion response. So immediately you respond. You either withdraw, that's where it comes, fight, flight, or freeze response. You would have heard this a lot. So all these things happens when it takes a short route and your body behaves. Your body rushes, gushes, you feel nervous or palpitation or whatever that happens in your body. Yes, everything will be taken care by this short route. But there is a long route. So when a thing goes through long route, what happens is it goes through your frontal, okay, and your memory center, and then comes to amygdala. What happens is when the situation is taken to your frontal, it looks to the situation. It says, okay, is there a real danger, or is there just a perceived danger? Your prefrontal, that is thinking brain, analyzes it and then relates it with the memory. Okay, and once it relates with the memory, then memory and analysis goes to your emotion center, and then the responses begin. Okay, so this is the long route. Now, which is good, short route or long route? I would tell you both. Both of them are not good. Short route, there is a panic reaction, you immediately react, respond to it, your body reacts. But the long route, the danger here is, the very important point here is, it's just not your prefrontal brain that is working, that is your thinking brain is working. The hippocampus, the memory part, is playing a very important role here. That's where your past memories come to play. All the past events. So because of the past events and the repetition of it, by now it would have become a belief system. So here I just wanted to bring in one line about one thing that you have to know about brain is, whenever there is an happening in your life, and that happening, when it is repeated, it becomes your automatic, and when it becomes automatic, it becomes your belief system. Okay, so that is exactly what will happen in the long route. When particular event has happened in the past, that the memory part of it, the hippocampus, gives the message, it claps it. That's when the negativity comes into play. How much ever you're sober in a fearful situation, but if there is a negativity, if there is a distortion of thinking that has happened already by past experiences, your analysis is going to be wrong. Your decision making is going to be wrong. Your perspective, your perspective towards the situation is going to be wrong. And then when that message goes to amygdala, it again catches up with its own emotional memory, and the response is going to be the same, fear-filled response. Okay, so this is exactly what is happening in your brain. So this is exactly what happens in your memory. I just told you, right? I just wanted to reinforce here. So there is a stimulus. There is some happening. There is something has happened in your childhood. Maybe we'll take when you were 10-year-old. There was a happening, and maybe you're touched wrong. There is some abuse that has happened to you. Okay, so when it is perceived, sometimes what happens is your body, if it is not harmful, if it's just was, it was not hurting you, it just stays, it goes off memory. That's it. Just fraction, it just filters few of it, forgets. Okay, so if at all, if it is little serious, then it may get into working memory. We call it as short term. I don't want to complicate it with a lot of words here. So then it moves on to short term memory, which will stay with you for a while, and then you forget it. But when the short term memory gets repeated, or when it is come as a force, when the stimulus is a shock or a trauma, that's why when a child is abused in a very young age, sexual abuse or physical abuse or verbal abuse or emotional abuse, or a child getting reared up in a family where there is a distortion, when a child grew up always having parents fighting, when their ambience is completely emotionally abused for the child, it becomes, because it is getting repeated every day in and day out, or many times in the life of a child, So that becomes a long-term memory that gets stored. You know what? Now, this is going to act as a filter for every other experience a child is going to face when the child grows up. Whenever a child gets into a relationship, the filter that the child is going to see is its past experiences. The examples of relationship that the child saw, the relationship between parents, or with with parents, or with mother and the child, or whatever. And through the lens, if the lens is clear, the child is going to see the world clearly. If the lens is going to be filled with abuse and whatever negativity, failure or loss, then the perception or the reaction to the life challenges when the child turns 30 is going to be affected completely. Okay, so here it is. Long-term memory, what it contains, long-term memory, because why I'm focusing here on memory part is because fear is all about your decision making getting mixed with your memory and then the reaction. That's why I'm focusing on the memories part here. Okay, there is two types of memory. There is explicit memory and implicit memory. Explicit memory, you know what? It's a kind of declarative. The thing is, what you can recollect. Okay, what you can recollect, or if I ask you to read something and memorize, and if you want to bring it out, yes, that is explicit. But implicit is what? Something that gets down to your subconscious, and there is also recollection of this memory, but without the conscious effort. That makes the difference between explicit and implicit. So in explicit memory, you can consciously bring to remembrance what has happened. But in an implicit memory, you cannot consciously, you don't need conscious effort for it. It just comes out. See, for example, when you have learned, when you learn cycling, maybe you would have learned cycling when you were 10 years old, and now you may be 40. Now, after 20, 30 years of not touching the cycle, if I give you a cycle, you can still ride it. Where it all came from. That is from your procedural skills, that is in their implicit memory. So it doesn't need your conscious memory. Your brain doesn't need to sit and figure out, okay, I have to first press this pedal, to this brake. No. It just comes automatically. That is implicit memory. That is exactly what will happen with emotional conditioning. In your childhood, if you got used to it, if you are, if you just, especially when you are, below 10 years or below 11 to 12 years, all the experiences that you have undergone, what happens is it gets registered. It gets like a skill into your brain, it's kind of an emotional conditioning. You get conditioned to it. I hope many of you know this, but for some people who don't know, I just wanted to explain one thing, that is about Pavlov's dog theory. So where one scientist, what he did was, he took a dog for his research. First, he checked, he gave food for the dog, and the dog salivated. Very natural response, right? When there is food is given, there is salivation. Next, what he did, he accompanied food and bell. The dog still salivated because food was there. As he was practicing, as he was gradually giving both together, food and bell, what happened after a period of time, even without giving the food, just the bell sound, the dog salivated. This, this example we would have seen with our own day-to-day life experiences. With if you have grown some, maybe if you have pet at home, definitely you would have understood this by now. This is exactly what will happen in your brain. So when you are young, when you experience something along with maybe food with a bell, okay, a parenting along with abuse, what happens is gradually, just parenting, anything for that matter will bring you, just the bell will bring this fear response to you. Even there is no abuse, still you will have fear. Even there is no threat, still you will have fear. Even if you can do, you will not do, you will take a back seat. Even if you can excel, you can't do it just because you are already conditioned. You got conditioned to it. Hope you understand. So this is what is happening. Now I want you to go back to the types. As I said, all the other fears except innate and phobia and other things are learned by the past experiences. Hope you get it now. All the past experiences gets registered into your mind as a long-term memory, especially implicit memory. And so what happens is actually gradually when you grow up, whenever situation comes in, it comes along with this memory. So just the bell sound or just something related to the past will give you a threat. This we call it as fear generalization. You don't need to be very specific. That's why people who are afraid of failure never take any step. People who have fear of rejection never attempt to make any relationship because they always have a safe limitation. They say, rumba careful madam. Why? Because they are afraid that they'll be rejected. They wouldn't have validated the other person. They wouldn't have validated the situation. Basically, this is exactly what is happening is because now there is no threat, but the fear response had already come. Remember the dog? Just bell, but the dog celebrated. Okay, this is what is happening in your brain, in your body during fear. Okay, so another interesting point that you have to know in the science of fear is your body cooperates so much with your mind. Your body is amazingly, it will cooperate. Whenever there is a fear signal sensed, your body immediately handholds with the brain and say, I am responding. Immediately heart palpitates, nervousness, restlessness, your face changes, anger pops up, all these things comes into play. Okay, so hope you understood science. Let's move on to levels of fear. This is very, very important. So I really want you to know, where are you right now? Where exactly, which level are you in? Okay, just validate yourself as we are talking. Just reflect on yourself. Okay, so I'm sorry, I think the screen is not clear. I just pasted an image. I think the pixels are not clear. Okay, so see, actually the fear moves from bio to social, or in the sense from survival to thriving. Basically, there is a basic response of fear, as I told you before, innate, to survive. But later, with the situations when there is no actual threat, when the past experience mixes with our thinking, when there is negativity is growing gradually, what happens is, the first level, what happens is you will lose autonomy. You will have a fear of losing autonomy, in the sense you cannot you feel that you cannot take steps on your own, or you are kind of restricted, you are very limited, and this is what is the area that you can approach to, and you will have a kind of loss of freedom. You cannot take any free decision for your own self, where you have an understanding that this is your limitation. Okay, that is the first level, where without your understanding, you have a definition about yourself, that this is your limitation, this is your ability. Okay, this is your boundary and you should not cross this. If you cross this, that's it, all these things. So first level is, you may say, I take big steps, all these things, but there may be something that is underneath which defines your limitation. If negativity, past experience is limiting your freedom of defining yourself, then you are in the first level of social fear. Okay. So the next level is separation. So now, if you're not addressing this first level of loss of autonomy, you will move on to the next level where you try to withdraw yourself from people, from situations, from positions, from responsibilities, from roles. You'll try to withdraw or separate yourself, or otherwise you will also have a fear over the responsibilities and fear and the position that you're holding on right now. Right now you may be holding on to some position and you will have a kind of fear that you may also whether you can hold it together. There are so many things that you're handling. You will have a fear that, can I hold it together? So you will try to separate yourself, saying no to responsibilities, all these things. Decision making will be very, very poor when there is fear, when there is negativity involved. And followed by which is the fear of failure. Disappointment. You'll develop, the fear of failure is something I would like to call it as an ego death, where you lost complete identity of yourself. Your definition about yourself, your complete self is being eaten up by your past memories or the negativity. Shame. That's when the shame comes up, like you don't want to go out. You don't want to face people. So that is, if you are in that level, then you need to be careful. And I want to encourage you all, whatever level that you are in, you can come out of fear. You can come out of fear. But one thing is required is your willingness to come out of fear. One trick here is, because your body is so much connected with your negativity, your body will fight against you. When you make a determination or to will against fear, your body will fight. It will tell you, okay, you know what? No. I think you're taking a big step now, and definitely you're going to fail. This will not work out for you. And likewise, if you fail, that's it. Your brain will tell you, didn't I tell you? I told you already. Your body will give you a message. I told you already. See, how many people turned up? No one. You are a failure. So this is what will happen. Okay. So whatever level that you are in, you can come out of fear. Okay. Take this right. So these are the levels of fear. Okay. Especially in the last one, the fear of failure. This is what will be your status, that you are a failure. Have you heard people saying this? I am a failure. Whatever I touch will not prosper. I cannot comfort this. If I do this, that's completely, this is what is going to happen. This is a statement of fear. Okay. So exactly, now you can understand it is also directly related to self-esteem, the trust issue. You are not able to trust yourself. Hope you're able to connect the dots here. So these are the levels of fear. Now we have come to the very important part. Maybe within a few minutes I'll wrap up. So how to face this fear? Now that I understood, yes, I am in this level and these are the reasons, all these things. Now I understood all these things, but how can I come out of fear? One thing I have to tell you, we have to work from inside out. The first formula that you have to know is for fear is you have to work from inside out. Many a times what we do is we try to change our behavior. No, you have to start from other way around. You have to start from inside out. Let me say something here. See, when a child is born, as I told you, the child doesn't have all these contextual fears. We all learned it later. through our parenting, through our relationship with in school, we would have learned from the environment. All these things we learned it. When a child tries to learn to walk, when it attempts to walk, it was so surprising for me when I first learned that a child falls down 2,000 plus times before the child could get a stability in walking. You and me, that's all about you and me. You and me, we fell thousands, more than 2,000 times before we could get that grip to walk and run. We all did it. You and me did it. We did it basically because we didn't have that shame. We didn't have the fear of failure. We didn't have the fear of, not achieving, fear of what others will think about me. We didn't have that fear at all. That's why you and me are walking. You and me are able to stand without any support, basically because we didn't have that fear when we were young. But you know what? Gradually we learned. Fear popped up, by learning, by social media, by the movies that we saw. That's why I'll be very particular in telling to parents, especially when I address parents, I used to tell them this thing: don't expose your child for any horror or anything before the age of 12, because your brain doesn't know, whether it is a real threat or just an action. No, it doesn't have that clarification. It takes it for real danger. Okay, that's very, very important. That's why some of us, even at the age of 40 or 50, we still have fear of failure. Fear of darkness, fear of being alone. Some people really want fan to run because there is a negative distortion associated with it. There is something that they learned in the childhood is associated with it. So all these are wide range of fear. Okay, so as a step of facing the fear, define your fear. I told you various types of fear. And even in the fear, we dealt about different levels. I want you to understand what is your fear. And identify your type and your level. And next point is the very, very crucial point, that is capture your distortion. That is understand or sit and analyze what is the negativity that is associated with your fear. As I told you, negativity is the bolstering thing, is the strong tower or the stronghold for your fear to exist. So if you have to come out of fear, you have to first break that wall of negativity, that distortion, that negative thinking that is associated with your fear. So I want you to sit and think, what is that negativity? Is it about a negative thinking about your appearance, negative thinking about your ability, negative thinking about your relationship making, negative thinking about your trustworthiness, negative thinking about your what others will think about you? Are you generalizing things? Are you putting yourself in a perfectionist mode and saying, this is right, this is wrong, having a negativity? I want you to sit and think, what is that negative thinking? Or maybe you may not recognize it as negative thinking, or what is the pattern of thinking that I have for particular fear to exist? For example, there is, that you have ability to perform something, and you're not able to come to the limelight. You don't want to take up a step. Think what is the, analyze what is the thinking associated. Maybe you may have a thought that if I go on stage, I'm not eloquent, I cannot speak well, I may fail, or I'm not very fluent in English. Whatever may be the negative thought, then associate that negative thought with the experience that you had. Maybe when you were studying 8th standard, you would have failed miserably in a stage performance, or somebody would have commented on your stage performance, or somebody would have given you a word on that, or your dad would have said, you won't work well with Max, so all these comments. And so now in this capturing distortion, what you have to do is name your fear, associate your fear with the distortion associated, cognitive negative thinking associated, and link that negative thinking with your past experience. And reconcile that past experience. You have to go back to the past experience, and you have to let it go. You have to say, yes, that was given for my wrong performance at that time. I'm not going to take it for my life ever. I'm going to leave it there. This will be challenging. This will be challenging for yourself. But what I would recommend is, I'm encouraging you all to confront yourself, challenge yourself. There is no medication for fear. The real medication for fear is facing it. So, steps of restructuring. How are you going to restructure your cognition again? The final step. How are you going to? You have to start with thinking, that is T, then go to your emotional part, and then to your action part. Many a time, what we do is we work on our actions. We try not to, reveal ourselves, as we are afraid of something, or we really always project ourselves fearless. We try to project ourselves that we are confident. That's such a hard work, that's such a hard work. You don't have to work there. You have to work only in your thinking. Start working in your thinking. List down your distortion and validate it. Validate. Is this very true about me? You can always find one or two people who are really well-wishers of you. You can sit and talk to them. This is what I think about myself. What do you think about me? It will be difficult for you even to get feedback from others. But challenge yourself. Go take some reliable steps, friends, for yourself, and ask this question. See, this is what I'm struggling with. I think that I cannot excel in this area. What do you think about me? Maybe I may say, no, I have seen this strength in you. Try to believe blindly. It's not that I would encourage you to believe everyone, but if you have sought for a professional help, or if you're sought for someone who could give you a wise counsel, just try to believe the appreciation or the right definition that they give about you. And then with that, for that definition, that cognitive thinking, let that go through your amygdala now. That will give you a kind of emotion. First, that emotion will be kind of awkward, weird, mixed, but gradually your body, your emotion, amygdala understands, okay, yeah, I think I'm doing good. Then take up an action. Now that you believe, and then you give your emotional control to it, and then take up a step. Now perform yourself in a stage. And then maybe you may do some, maybe 40% you may not worked good, but start appreciating for that 60% that you excelled. Move on. Your body will learn, and the whole process will be restructured. So this is exactly what should happen in your fear. Okay, when you're trying to come out of fear. So basically, we are moving from unclear thinking from clear thinking. This is exactly what is happening in fear. In crux, if you want to understand, fear is mixed with so many past experiences, negativity, all these things. Now, in the process, we are shaking off all the negativity. We are breaking the wall around it and bringing that emotion out and feeding that emotion with the right thinking. Exactly, the outcome is going to be the best. You are going to come out of fear. Hope this session was helpful for you.